Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to my humble channel. It's good to have you all back again. Now, I don't really know where to start today because there's just so much I need to get out and so much I need to share. And I'll tell you what, with the amount of things going on, it's not easy to pick and choose which subject to talk about. But I'm going to start on a positive note. I watched a great video from Ministry Revealed. It's his latest one. Now, it's 2 hours long now, but he's confirming a date. Now, I took the Barry Orr one with a grain of salt. He said the 25th of June. Now he's saying, I think he's saying the 7th of July now. But the reason the Ministry Revealed one got me very interested is because there was a separate channel, and I don't think they're sharing the same information. They're coming to the same date on a different path. 717. And they're translating it to mean Yahweh, to mean snatching away, to mean all kinds of things. So it's a fascinating watch. Watch the latest Ministry Revealed video if you got time, and you'll get so much out of it. He pretty much sums up in this video everything he's been trying to explain to people, all in one big video, talking about everybody believes they've been taught from the foundation of Matthew, so they've got a confusion. The tribulation's 14 years long. There's 2 sets of sevens, which makes sense in other few ways, but I'll get to that later. But yeah, and the last 7 is trumpets, and the first 7 is seals. And some people complaining, oh, that's, they're thinking to themselves, it's too long, but it's like, you don't plan on being here anyway, do you? And if you're a pre-tribulation rapture believer, which I am, by the way, so if you're going to come on here and wanting to discredit that, I don't even know why you press play, because it's going to say it in the title. It's going to give you that idea in the title. So we're living in really exciting times, aren't we? I mean, the craziness of our times, the seriousness of our times, the joy of our times, it's so exciting and terrifying. So I found that interesting. There's actually Hebrew lettering, and it's spelled, I believe it was, I'll need to double check it, but it was the word Yahweh in Hebrew, and you can see a 717 in it. I mean, whoa. So speaking of Hebrew, let's talk about Israel for a second. Now, I'd watched a movie a while ago. It was called World War Z. Now, I don't know if you've seen it. It's got Brad Pitt in it. It was a terrible movie. But it was about Israel and a zombie apocalypse. And now that it was like everyone had this disease, I believe. They had something, you know what I mean? And it made them go absolutely insane. But don't you find a little bit of a coincidence in that? If you look at Israel and the way they're dealing with everything, it's like, talk about pre-programming. And it's starring Brad Pitt, and I can't help but think of the pits of hell. although he's a handsome man, he is working for the enemy. So there you go. Check out that movie and see what you think. See what you get out of that, if you can handle it. Don't you find that all institutions, I'm talking every single system and institution at the moment, has fallen to darkness and wickedness and given themselves over to this entity? Let's go media, banks, food, clothing, housing, utilities, transport, medicine. It's like everything they do and say now is contrary to decades of how they portrayed themselves in the last few years. I mean, it had been going on prior to that, but it's amped up now. You can see and hear the voices of these people, and I mean, how can anyone even buy their product again? Because it's like they're shooting themselves in the foot with their rhetoric. And it just really shows who they are. Speaking of all those institutions, I want to talk about one other institution, a man, Bill Gates. Now, I was looking up philanthropy. Like, I thought I knew what it meant, but I got right down to what it really means. Philanthropy, helping the poor. And this is what Bill Gates says that he is. You know how they help the poor? I want to take out one word. It says especially money. I'm going to say money. They help the poor with money. But do they? Do they help the poor with money? Or are they trying to just know more about the poor so they can get rid of them? Speaking of getting rid of, now, I discovered something very, very sinister. Now, in my country, I can feel there's a huge difference with what's going on. It has stepped up a whole nother level. They have locked up, or they're going to, the whole country. Bar Tasmania, because Tasmania is actually separated from Australia, but I wouldn't be surprised if they include that. And I said to myself, the enemy's making a move. And I thought, am I being paranoid? And then I decided to look into, because you know what they're talking about now? When everybody says they're doing this, they're saying that's the enemy. And that includes what I'm saying. They're talking about camps. They want to set up one that's an hour and a half away from where I am. They're calling them camps. quarantine camps. Okay. Now, they showed, as they were talking about it in this news story, they were doing an aerial shot of what looked like it was an army base. It looked like Auschwitz. Okay, so I thought, okay, I need to look into this further. Now, they have been talking about a place that, as I said, it's an hour and a half away, and it's an airport that was built in 2014. It was built by 4 brothers. Some of them sound like it's like the disciples, John, Paul, Luke, and somebody else. But they privately funded it to build an international airport in a place that didn't make sense, because we have one that's only an hour from us. It's international. The reason I'm bringing this place up, so it was privately funded, 4 brothers, and it was the reason, a main reason they said they built it was because they wanted to have a closer connection to Hong Kong. So I went on Google Maps. I wanted to see if I could see anything significant about it from an aerial, because this is how they do stuff like this, the way they lay things out. I could see like a little wedge or something, like it looked like a little pyramid or whatever. But anyway, something else caught my eye. A construction company on the airport. They build things. Okay, so I looked into what they build. They build collapsible shelters that look like almost like the cargo containers you see on cargo ships, but they can be transformed. They were laying them out, showing you a demonstration. One can be a food place, one can be accommodation, and you can put these things up in like an hour. They say in an hour with 6 people you can erect one of these things. And it's like those offices you see on work sites, but they had a whole makeshift hospital that you could put up in a day, and it had little crosses all over it, like medical crosses, and alarm bells were going off. It was a Chinese company. So that's sinister enough in itself, is it not? So the name of this company, the name of this airport, get ready for it. Guess what it is? Well Camp. Guess what the name of the construction company that worked on the airport was? Well Camp. Nothing different. This place is out in the middle of nowhere. It's in like a semi-arid region. It's like where you build a prison. Anyway, I found it so sinister. Like, it may be nothing. I may be just imagining it. But I'm like, they're talking about using this place for a quarantine centre. Now, after they've just locked the whole country down. An hour and a half away from me. Have a think about it. So the rapture 717. I mean, it sounds like a godly number, doesn't it? 717. Because I've always seen 777 and 737, 37 and 73. 3 sevens. Well, we are in the year 2021, and 21 is 3, isn't it? 2 and 1. Speaking of tyranny, I was watching a news report on all this, and they said they wanted to get ahead of it. And this is a term, they put it in inverted commas in the title: spreading our net very wide. Spreading our net very wide to get ahead of. This was prior to locking the whole country down, mind you. So yeah, tyranny. Here they come with their nets. Speaking of Bill Gates, the philanthropist, helping the poor, especially with money. It's funny that they want to feed the poor money as if that's going to fix the problem. When Jesus clearly said, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." See, Gates, he wants to look like the good guy, right? But is he? Is Gates really the good guy? And I mean, how much does he really give? And what does he give? What for? What to pay for? What? Or is it like, I'll give you all this money, but I'm going to do all the buying for you. I'm going to buy all the things and put it into place for you. It's not like here's a check, here's a bank account. Do what you will. Do what you want with it. Yeah. So Jesus said himself, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." Now, last video I was talking a lot about giants and the giant statues and how it comes from ancient Greece and all this, and it's linked to the Nephilim and the fallen angels and all that. There was a part where I was talking about how with this giant statue you can go into a little booth and you can project your image onto it, and it talks and its arms move and it looks like it's alive, which is creepy in itself. Don't you think, maybe think about what they did in the days of Noah? They were mixing their seed with the seed of men, weren't they? And Jesus said it will be as in the days of Noah. So they're doing the same thing again. And then the daughter, because I've seen a lot of videos in the past where they talk about the Great Tribulation and all that. They talk about these giants come back, and are they already kind of trying to mix the seed with the seed of men again? And then they're telling you through these statues, your genetics will be a giant. Strange connection. there's plenty more evidence in early on in the Bible about the giants, and you know how they call them the mighty men in I think it's in Genesis 6:4. They call them the mighty men, men of renown, and you see in Revelation 19:8 where the mighty men were amongst those who were hiding from the face of the Lamb. So, who knows, there may be some giants. There's some great videos out there that give you pretty convincing arguments for it. So in I think Numbers 13, they're talking about seeing giants. They go into the land of Canaan, which Goliath was said to have been from the lineage of. So they showed you how tall Goliath was compared to an average man. Now he was just over 10 feet, I think. He was around 10 feet tall. But they believe they've discovered skeletal remains, and they're saying that they was 36 feet tall. Isn't that funny, the number 36 feet tall? And they said that they were like grasshoppers in their sight, that who had seen them, we were like the size of grasshoppers compared to them. So these things, if you believe the Bible, you have to believe that giants walked the earth. Giants walked the earth. And then if you go to all the other cultures, it's like they went into the earth to hide from the great flood. And then once the flood had subsided, they all came back out again. Because Moses and Exodus and Numbers, that's all after the flood. So before and after, giants eating people. Clash of the Titans. There's another movie to watch. Look what they're telling you. Clash of the Titans. I found another thing interesting. When they went into the land of Canaan to survey it, see what was in there, and the fruit. There was pomegranates, figs, and these giant grapes. And I just couldn't help but think of, you shall know them by their fruits. Like literally in this case. They've got giant fruit because they're giants. Maybe they were genetically doing something to plants as well. I was watching a documentary on the Holocaust, probably about a year ago, if that, and it was about what was going on inside the camps. Now, as you could probably all understand, you've probably seen a lot of stuff yourself where it was absolute misery. It was the worst way a human could treat another human. It was. That's where they came up with the term Holocaust. After the fact. Put it that way. That's how bad it was. And I remember seeing toward the end of this documentary, it got so gut-wrenching. When they got found out what they were doing to the poor Jews, who they were rounding up from all over the planet. Anywhere you could find a Jew, they had to be deported to the Nazis. They would send that country a letter, say, "Can you find all your Jews and put them on a boat, or immediately get them here." And they were doing it. People were just going, "Oh yeah, there's some Jews in my country, okay," and they were handing them over left, right, and center. So the goal was to, I think, get rid of every single one of them. It was, they were trying to discredit God's promise, if you like. But towards the end of this documentary, the Americans came in and saw what was going on in these camps, and they were absolutely horrified. There was piles of bodies as high as the buildings themselves. There were pyramids of people. They were just all naked, all dead, getting bulldozed into a giant pit. Mind you, the Americans made the Germans do all the work at gunpoint. Said, "No, you're going to deal with this." And they brought the German citizens in who were oblivious. They were oblivious. And they were all in their nice dresses, and they were all done up for the day, and they thought they were going to get this tour. They took them in one side, and they're all happy and they're all joking. And then they had another door where the German citizens were coming out after what they'd seen, and they were like throwing up, they were crying, they were in so much shock. And I don't know, it boggled the mind. It was just, how could anybody do this? But my point is, they haven't gone anywhere, these people. They are ready to do it again on a much bigger scale. You want to be here for the tribulation? Do I? No. Do I want anybody to stay behind for the tribulation? No. The Great Tribulation? No. I mean, when I was looking at those camps yesterday, it just struck me like how serious it is now. There's no room left to argue back at them. There's no discussion anymore. The things they are saying, the phrases they're using, if you don't think we're there, let's hope on the 17th of the 7th, guys. Because I felt the movement. I felt the enemy is moving. The assault, the next wave assault, the big one, the D-Day. You know, the DELTA, the new thing. DELTA. It's a pyramid. And since we're using those kind of letters, alpha, beta, like the stars have those, because Jesus said, "I am the alpha and the omega, the first and the last." They're using these letters like in the middle. Maybe delta is, it's D in the alphabet, isn't it? Maybe it's D for devil. I was having these little epiphanies the other day, little revelations in my mind, and I had to look deep into them. Now, let's talk about Facebook. Now, we've all seen it since the beginning of Facebook. You get a thumbs up, you get a thumbs down. Okay? Now, we all grow up thinking we know exactly what that means. Well, that's good and that's bad, right? No, it comes from ancient Rome. And it could have even come from earlier. Now, when the gladiators were fighting, and you'd have the Roman emperor, and the people were cheering or jeering or whatever, and the Roman emperor would give one of these or one of those. Now, I always thought, because I've seen all the gladiator movies, I thought I knew exactly what it meant. I thought, oh yeah, let him live and let him die. But no, you know what thumbs up actually means and meant? Drive your sword through his heart. So every time you're liking a video, it's like you're saying, drive a sword through the heart. And then the thumbs down meant to lower your swords. Let him fight another day. It's funny though, isn't it? I look at Mark Zuckerberg's head. He not only looks like an alien or a lizard man, whatever, speaks like a robot. He looks like one of those, his haircut and everything, he looks like one of those Roman busts, those sculptures. And he's running the thing called Facebook, and he's like, it's just, what? Another connection. When we say the word world, and I found some interesting ancient connections to that. The word world translates back to, in the Greek, world of people, cosmos. It's funny how we call that's the cosmos up there in the second heaven, the world of people. And there's all these constellations with people in them. Germanic cosmology, it also comes from. Guess what it translates to? The Germanic, the middle enclosure. So world means the middle enclosure. This was another interesting one. In the Old Norse, talking about the Vikings, Heimer, or abode. In the Gothic, this was the most interesting one. Literally, the seed of man. So even in the ancient, they're referring to the earth as where man was seed. Man was born. Man was created. The seed of man.
We were riding through the woods with our bikes. We got scared when it got darker at night, 'cause everyone was missing safety lights. So we tried to use a flashlight as a guide.
I wanted to find out, how long did Rome, the Roman Empire, rule over Israel? Jerusalem was captured in 63 BC. 63. By Pompey the Great, who made King Herod the client king, who was an Edomite. So, interesting. Anyone who says we shouldn't watch. Do they even read the Bible? Do they even read it? Do they even know what they're talking about? Because, you know, sometimes I think I know exactly what I'm talking about, but I'll find out something new and I'll correct myself. Like, how's this one? I'm always in the thought process that Jesus is God. Jesus is God, and he came to earth in the flesh to prove that he existed and all this kind of stuff. I mean, to do a lot more, of course. But I've always thought he is God. But then I asked myself a question. I said, but how can Jesus be God if he's sitting on the right hand of the Father? Like, yeah. And then I was watching Ministry Revealed yesterday, and he went right into it. Just like a day after I was thinking it. And he said, he was going, come on, guys, like, be honest with yourself. You've always been confused about that. And he made another, talking about how Jesus was saying, talking about his Father, and I know there was parts where he says, me and the Father are one. But then you got to ask yourself, he said, but the way Ministry Revealed put it, he put it that Jesus was the God of all gods. Because if you think about it in a worldly sense, there's all these belief systems out there, like the ancient Greeks. I keep going back to them, but that's a perfect example. They've got all the statues and the different gods and Jupiter and all that. And Jesus was basically saying to all those people, because remember we said he's the Alpha and the Omega as well. He's talking to the Greeks through the revelation, of course, in that part. But he's saying directly to them, I rule all of your gods. And in that sense, because that's how they respect, that's how they see life. And he's so just letting them know, like, your gods will come to nothing. They'll just be like residue under my feet, like dust. I was sitting on my couch watching a video on my phone, and it was, you know, about all the things to come and whatnot. A little bit terrifying, you know. And then I was thinking about since the Garden of Eden, the same spirit has been trying to end God's plan. All the way up to when they tried to take God on. And even at the end of the millennial reign, on Earth, not the new Earth, on Earth, they tried to take on God and God's army, Jesus Christ. And I'm sitting there, and it's like, I swear I got a flash in my mind, and I'm looking at, I think someone, it was a few seconds, but it's so got into my thought process. It made me feel really very happy. It's like a man looked at me, because I was like saying to God, oh, is this seriously what they're trying to do? I can't exactly remember what I was looking at. Is this seriously what they're going to try and pull off? And it's like he looked at me, and he made the funniest face, like, yeah, aren't they stupid? And he was like really having a good laugh, like, so reassuringly. It was like, I know, isn't it ridiculous? Because I'm thinking of the Father, and I'm thinking of Jesus, and I'm like, how can you even attempt to take that on? The complexity, the perfection. How could you even, as a human, as a mortal human being, man, you must have some arrogance. That's all I can say.
Tonight, I opened up my eyes. Tonight,
Imagine you were immortal, and you could be a fly on the wall, and you could see how many times these same people have come back to do this kind of thing. Wipe out mankind. Because think about, in the book of Enoch, they're teaching them how to go to war with each other. People, man, teaching man how to go to war with people, with others, and kill them, and make weapons, and that's the way I see it now. Like, if we're led into any kind of war, like a big one, with a big nation, it's almost as if the devil's, he's just standing on the sidelines watching everyone kill each other and looking up at God and laughing. But what he has to do, you see, he has to get a group on his side and make them think that he loves them, and that he's going to reward them. And they just have to believe that lie, because they get all these pretty things in life. I watched a movie called Wolf of Wall Street. It's got Leonardo DiCaprio in it. I mean, it's R-rated, because there's a lot of, like, you know, stuff going on in it. But that's the reality of it. That is the reality of it. It reminded me of in the start of the movie, in the very start of the movie, there's a lion walking around Wall Street. A lion. He's like prowling between the aisles of all the people trading. And that to me was like, oh, that's a symbol of Satan roaming around like a lion, seeking whom he may devour. Because they were all so greedy. He admits at the start of the movie, oh, we don't build anything. You know, because he's narrating, we don't build it. We never build anything. We just move money around and make it look like there's money there when there isn't. We've taken all the money. Basically, that was the gist of it. So yeah, a lion, and just the fact he was called the wolf, a wolf of Wall Street. It reminded me of the excesses of ancient Rome and Babylon, and excesses, like you've got more than enough than you should ever deserve, but you still want more. And you can see how easily he gets swept up in the whole, we're making millions of dollars. Mind you, they say once you've made your first $1 million, it's never enough. You never want to fall below $1 million ever again. And then that's what takes up all of your life. For the love of money is the root of all evil. When you think about money, it's just plastic and metal, and it has such an influence on the entire world. You just got to give that up. That desire, which is hard because they're making time so tough for us. But you know, you've got to be ready to leave your phone, your wallet, your keys, right where they are. Because I was watching something on Sodom and Gomorrah, and you know, everyone thinks, oh, you know, yeah, Lot was saved, that was good. But they forget the part where his wife was told not to turn around, to look back at those things in desire. Oh, all my stuff's back there. My life's back there. And she disobeyed God. She disobeyed the angels. And she turned into a pillar of salt, which they think they've even found it. They've found all the places that Moses went through in the desert. They found Mount Sinai that's burnt on top. They've found the altars that were made. They've found the rock that he smote with his staff that cracked open and water came out. You can see the residue of where water flowed out of this thing. Yeah, so be ready just to leave everything behind. He only wants you. And then I think about the legacies of men. And, you know, all the mighty men and the men of renown and the legacies that, they leave behind big monuments and they want that. I mean, look how long the pyramids have lasted. Look how long the ruins have lasted. I mean, they have been there for millennia. They've stood the test of time, some of them. Most of them been destroyed by earthquakes. But God has no respect for legacies. He doesn't care about your legacy. What you think you've done that was so important. All the trophies that you won. He doesn't care. It doesn't mean anything to him. That's what people are like. They're expending all their life's energy on these things. Like I don't know, are the Olympics started? Have they started? Because I haven't been watching them at all. I could not care less. Because it's an ancient Greek ritual. Worshipping man as God. If you think about it, I'm not anti-sport. I love sport. I love athletic people. I love it. I do athletic things myself. But the Olympics is such a, like, it's so, like, worshipping man. And then you got all the medals, like the gold and the silver and the bronze. It sounds like the Nebuchadnezzar dream nearly, doesn't it? The giant statue that gets destroyed by a stone carved without hand. Smashes the feet. Where they tried to mix miry clay with iron, but it did not cleave to one another. That statue. We're dealing with the feet. Which is interesting, that miry clay mixed with iron, when you look at all the people who are putting magnets all over himself after receiving the you know what. Are we not clay? Didn't God make Adam from the clay? A lot of people say, oh, dirt. It's like, if you really look into it, it's clay, like a sculpture. And then you look at Rome and Greece, and that they were making lots of little statues out of clay, figures of human beings, idols. Where'd they get that idea from? If you think about the way God created man. So we're miry clay, and they're wanting to mix iron. I mean, iron. There's so much more to it's just the metal he means by that. But he also means that. They've taken breakfast cereal, cornflakes, and they blended it up in a blender, and they got a magnet. It was dust. They got a magnet, and they started moving, and they separated iron from the cornflakes, and they had a little collection of iron on the magnet from the cornflakes. So they're putting it in the food. So how long have they been trying to mix iron with clay? Because that's something we eat every day. We put that into our bodies. Camps, well camp. reminds me of a movie I saw, and it was called The Cure to Wellness. And it was about a Swiss, like a mental institution. And the man comes over from America. He's there to investigate something, but he ends up becoming a patient. They convince him there's something wrong with him, and he's in there now. He can't leave, and they keep asking him, "How are you drinking the water? Are you drinking the water?" It turns out the water's like doing strange things to him, and it's making him worse and worse and worse, and then more subservient to his masters in this place. The Cure to Wellness. I believe it's called The Cure to Wellness. It came out just a few years ago, and when I heard the name Well Camp, I thought, oh, it's like the cure to wellness, isn't it? Where you're there for some other reason, and then all of a sudden, oh, do you want to have a little chat with us? And then we've decided, and then they just dose you with something, and then you can't leave. If you don't think these people can exist, like that would do things like this, think of like Nero, Caligula in Rome. Look up Caligula, right? Strange. But I think God allowed it. It was like, you're going to get the person you deserve, Rome. And I think the first half of his term as emperor, they loved him. He was wonderful. He was awesome. He was doing all the right things by people. He had managed to set up all the other senators with he had all these scrolls that told him exactly what they had done and who they'd manipulated and who they'd backstabbed and what they were guilty of. And he showed it to them all. And he said, these are all your past crimes, these scrolls. And he said, he put them all into a big bowl in front of them. And then he said, you are forgiven. And he set them all on fire. And they were like, oh, so they loved him, you know. Oh, he'd forgiven all of our, you know, like all our corruption. He'd just forgiven it, and let's move on and stuff. Anyway, he was prone to, they called it dropsy, I think. It was like epilepsy or something. And he would just drop and have a little fit and pass out. Wake up again. It would happen to him all the time. But this one time, it happened so bad, they thought he was going to die. But he didn't. They were getting ready to, you know, name the next emperor. But when he woke up, he was a different person. It was like Satan had entered him. He'd made double copies just in case of those scrolls I was talking about. And he'd burnt them all in front of them, thinking they were off scot-free. Then he pulled out the real ones. He said, I've still got them. You're all under my control now. Does anybody want to argue? Anyone who looked at this guy wrong were dead. That's it. But sometimes in the most awful ways, like he would do the most awful, humiliating things to people. He would grab, because he was the emperor, and he would say, I have supreme say over everything. This is why I'm saying I think God allowed Rome to have someone like this. Because this was going to be, they didn't want to accept Christ. It was like, you're going to get the Satan that you want. He would have a big dinner, right? And if you sat at his table and you had a beautiful wife, he would just walk up to her. He would take her by the hand, and he would have his way with her in front of you, knowing that you were too much of a coward and you were too weak to stand up and do anything. And he was just enjoying himself, like really left, right and center, using his power. Yeah, wasn't a friend of the Christian. The excuse was that he was doing that to the Christians to appease the people so they didn't kill him. No, because I think Satan's inhabiting him. He knows very well who the Christians are. Whoever didn't bow down to him had somebody else who had authority over them. And he didn't like that. Nero, just as bad. Just as bad. I mean, all evil's equally bad. It's true evil. I mean, like I was saying before, the same people are still here. And they will do it again. The Nazis, they will do it again. They were very much into the occult. There was a castle they'd go to, and they were invoking spirits, and like standing next to Hitler while he was making a speech, they said it was like he wasn't, something would enter him and he would just captivate you. The air would change, the atmosphere would change. And then you look at the end result of what Hitler was doing in those camps and you think, that had to have been Satan. And think about it. It was like the Jews still hadn't accepted Jesus. They were still vulnerable. They're just like sheep out in the middle of the wild and there's wolves and lions. Just, there's no shepherd. Able to come in from all angles. Bang, 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 bang. And sheep aren't known to be very intelligent. But God loves them. But he uses these animals like sheep and goats and things. How he rode in on a donkey. Colt. I believe it was 2. But yeah, sheep and goats. Sheep are placid but vulnerable. And they tend to hurt themselves a lot by going through fences they shouldn't. And so easy to get, you heard the unblemished, like sacrifice. But it's so easy to blemish a sheep. And then you've got the goat. Does whatever it wants, eats everything, destroys everything. It can be very aggressive. It can always just want to charge you all the time. That looks funny, doesn't it? And hard to contain. It's funny how he uses that analogy for the 2 types in the end. Sheep and the goats. So it's quite something to think about when you think about animals and, snake. You've got a dove. You've got to look at the nature of those animals. The raven, what they represent. A lion, a bear, a leopard. And it's funny how the nations that wanted to take over the whole world were using them as symbols, like lions and leopards, bears. Isn't it funny how that's how the beast is described? There's a mixture of those things. It's a mixture, all in one. It's like a reflection of the cherubim that Ezekiel saw. All in one. Like a hybrid of an animal. I just want to talk about some channels I consider two different classes. You got the heavyweights and you got the lightweights. Now, what I mean by the heavyweights is they're not afraid to get into any kind of new information, accept new information, to be honest with themselves, and then we find out so much more, and it's so special. And then you've got the lightweights, and they'll just be sticking to what they know, thinking of nothing new, teaching things that don't make any sense anymore. I'll go through the lightweights first. And these lightweights, they tend to ask for the most money. They're so arrogant, they think they can just have a channel and ask for all this money. And they think, oh yeah, I'm worthy of that from everyone. I'm so special, I know so much. Come to me for everything. Okay, I'm going to go for Amir Safari. You heard of Amir Safari? Talks about Israel all the time. He teaches so many wrong doctrines. It's not funny. I find him, the first time I saw him, there was something, I'm watching him, his physical person, and I thought there's something off about him. He seems all genuine and, there was something else I could see in him. Something of a spiritual nature, if you like. You've got, who else? Hope for Our Times. Now this guy, all he does is travel around wherever he likes. He's got all this money and he's going here and there all over the world still. And he's talking about how great his holidays are and all this. And I'm thinking, if you're talking to real believers who aren't doing so well financially, and he's having all these big, he's organising all these big conference sort of speechy things where you got to pay for tickets and go to it, and I find that just very distasteful. I don't like that sort of, because first of all, he's so far behind in what we've discovered with Revelation. He's so far behind now. It's like, Tom, just stop. Of course, you've got the Joel Osteen church. I watched about 5 minutes yesterday. Oh, they had some other woman up in his place, and she was like an actor. She was like on theatre on a stage, and she was speaking in a certain tone, and it was so put on. There was nothing genuine about what no scripture. There was no scripture mentioned whatsoever. It was just all around the idea of what they think Jesus is and how rich everyone can be. Now, people have so much stuff. You heard about all your prized possessions will weigh you down. I mean, think of that in a literal sense. If you're holding on to all these things on earth, you're not going to want to go up there. That's what I was saying before. You got to be ready to let go of your keys, your phone, your wallet, your car. Just let it all go. Yeah. Another channel that kind of is starting to disturb me a little. Now, I don't know, you guys might totally disagree and go, I love that guy. What are you talking about? He's awesome. God a minute. He had a video on a few days ago I watched, and it didn't give me anything. Like it was him walking in a spacesuit, listening to David Bowie, and it was like he was mocking Christ. And he's going, "Yep, off again." Wait, and the childish voices and the theatre behind him, and he's got so many outlets you can give him money, and he's selling all of this merchandise. It's like he is mocking. To me, I don't want to offend anyone who loved this guy, but to me personally, I find him very disingenuous. I'm not saying he's not saved, but by his demeanour, I mean, he's got Bowie playing. I'm like, who even gets the rights to play Bowie? It's like he's got all this money behind him. And without getting a strike, I mean, playing something commercial. And he's got like key rings that say, "Go, Jesus, go." It's so patronising. And he's got rainbows all over his mugs. It's kind of like, it's almost like a wink to the, you know, what community? Selling mugs and hats and t-shirts and keychains. And look, I'm not against capitalism, but it's like, we're talking about something so deep and meaningful. And just the fact he was playing Bowie, and if you look into Bowie, he was so deep into the occult. So many songs are referring to Lucifer and Satan. Ziggy Stardust. I'm like, and this guy in God a Minute, he calls himself he's a professional musician, as if he doesn't know that about Bowie. Look, I've listened to Bowie. I love it and stuff, but the video it had nothing to offer you. Just his short little video. And I find he's trying to sort of gain some sort of celebrity. And this happens to be the subject that he's chosen. And his logo for God a Minute, it's like a circle and a guitar neck pointing up. So you got the circle and the guitar neck. Look, I'll draw it. I'll draw it. It's similar to this, right? You got like a circle with piano keys and then a guitar neck. What does that look like to you? What does it look like to you? I mean, when I said disingenuous, that's what I meant. Is he taking the absolute, I'm going to say, is he taking the piss or what? I guess I see things differently than others. People just like some warm, comforting words. It's like when you have these teachers out there, and they have names like Ray Comfort, Todd White, and Paula White, and you know, I just think that's not their real name. It cannot be their real name. It's made up in order to accommodate their chosen outlet for making money. And not only that, it goes further than that. Like Ray Comfort. It all sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but I've seen other like exposures on that guy, and he's teaching that you have to work. You can lose. He's teaching you can lose your salvation. And if he believes that, it means you were never saved in the first place. Ray. And it's almost as if they're doing it on purpose. They know what they're doing. They're misleading on purpose. They're taking you away from the truth on purpose. Because if you're sitting around thinking, oh, I've got to do stuff, I've got to do things so that God will take me. And you do things because you love God. You do things for God because you love God, because you love Jesus. That's what motivates you to do it. Because we are saved by grace and not of works. go. Yeah, so like you pretend you're immortal and you saw all of human history, all of mankind's history, all the civilizations, all the kings, all the rulers. If you could sort of sum it all up, you'd say it's the same people trying to kill Christ, trying to kill the promise. All the kings, the rulers, the Neros, the popes, the Islams, the elites, like Rome itself, the fact that it occupied Jerusalem, captured Jerusalem in 63. Do you think they were the spirit behind it all? The Roman Empire was getting ready for that promise to come true. That's why they captured it. Do you think Herod was positioned in such a position as Jesus was being born to go out and kill all the 2 years and under little boys? Of course, he was positioned by the enemy. I mean, Satan entered Judas, the Last Supper. He was just hovering around the whole time. He still is. Now the promise is coming because that's been fulfilled. Christ came, died, buried, rose. He fulfilled the promise. So Satan lost that one. The next one Satan's got to try and fight is trying to stop a rapture, trying to occupy Jerusalem, and then eventually trying to go to war, which is funny, against God, against Jesus, the Son of God, with us in tow, mind you, and we'll get our justice. And then finally again, the dragon is released at the end of the millennial reign, and again attempts, but fails again. So not only the prophecy of the Son of Man coming and fulfilling his promise through the crucifixion, it's like Satan just can't do anything to stop this. So don't worry. He can't do anything. He's tried and failed.
We have no time to waste and no hesitate. If we not leave today, it could have been too late. It could have been too late. It's not good in a Babylon. It's not good.
Please pray for me. I mean, I'm on a prisoner island. They're locking the whole country down. Well, they have. They're forcing themselves onto us. They've got camps set up. Who for? We're yet to find out. But I'm thinking Holocaust stuff. Because if you understand these people, they are fulfilling a plan. And it does not have us anywhere in the future, if you know what I mean. It's either slavery or death. Yeah. So I'll leave it there, guys. Check out that Ministry Reveal video. I'll talk about his latest one. It explains so much, and it's so in-depth, and it's so fascinating. It gives you so much hope too. Let's keep an eye on that 17th of the 7th. I mean, this is significant this time. It just feels different. And I feel like the enemy's making such a bigger move, bigger and bolder now. Just openly going for it. But I'll keep you posted, guys. It's been great having you back, and God bless every single one of you. Please pray for me because I'm making these videos. The attacks are coming thick and fast, but I'll keep you posted. Stay safe. Stay close to Christ. Like, I'm talking like grab onto his ankle now and just beg him to take you. Beg him to come and get you. He's so full of grace and mercy. Unlike who's in charge down here. There's no grace. There's no mercy. But I could talk all day, guys, but I'll leave it at that. I'll see you next time. It's been great having you back, and I will talk to you again soon. See ya.